Sairam, topic for discussion is Mauna Vrata. Mauna Vrata. What is Vrat? Vrata or Vrat is to be at it. When any particular practice which we take up, to be consistently at Vrata. Mauna Vrata is about practicing silence. Mauna is silence. Vrata is to consistently practice, make it our attribute, making it our character. Mauna Vrata. So what is Mauna Vrata? As I just mentioned, is practicing silence. The very statement that we have to practice silence, the Mauna Vrata, if we just apply our attention to that one word, Mauna Vrata, suddenly you will find peace. Suddenly you will find that calmness. Mauna Vrata. So what is Mauna Vrata? We know technically what it is. How to practice it? Is it necessary? Even if it may or may not be necessary, but does it help? Several questions. So we take a dive deep into the subject. Practicing silence is one of the greatest sadhana in our spiritual evolution. One of the best practice that we can imbibe in the path of our spiritual progression. Silence. The language of the universe is silence. The language of the divine is silence. The language of your guru is silence. Regarding our guru Sri Sainatha, there is one beautiful statement. My guru spoke to me in silence. I understood in silence. I prayed to him in silence. We understood each other in silence. The power of silence. Now, these are all beautiful statements to absorb. Now, what is silence? When we maintain silence, when we avoid speaking consciously, when we avoid verbal communication consciously, that is when we can experience silence. When we are aware, when we know and when we can speak, when we must speak, when we have to speak, and then you don't speak, is the first step towards silence. When you don't have to speak and you do not speak, That is not silence. That is lack of necessity from speaking. You don't have to speak. You are not speaking. There is no necessity for you to speak. Then you are quiet. That is being quiet. It is not silence. Silence is a deed, a sadhana, which we perform consciously. We tell ourselves, for these many passage of time, I shall not speak. For next 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 1 day, 1 week, I shall not speak at all, no matter what. That is silence. That is the first step towards practicing silence. Not just keeping quiet when you have nothing to speak. No. Even if there is nothing to speak, when you are sure that you are practicing silence and despite the need for you to speak, you shall not speak. There may or may not be a situation where you are supposed to speak, despite that you don't speak, is the first step towards practicing silence. Being quiet and being silent. That's the difference. Now, in some of the orders, spiritual orders, they say be quiet, don't speak. But it is such a big effort. It is so illogical. As they advise us, be quiet, don't speak. That is not silence. Be silent. How one should be silent? How one we practice, what happens when we practice silence? Right? Silence is a practice we need to understand. Just trying to forcing yourself not to speak, but there are so many things, there are so many distractions. You're literally suppressing the desire to speak or the necessity to speak. No, it is a bigger clutter in your mind. You're more messed up. It's more chaotic. You cannot practice silence when it is forced upon you or when we haven't understood what is silence. We just cannot. That is ridiculous. Some of the orders I know. Just practice silence, be quiet, don't speak. How? Why? Because speech is an expression. Speech is an expression. Even in your spiritual path, you need to ask or you have to express for anything, daily chores and anything and everything. So that is very illogical if we don't understand what is silence and how to practice, what is the benefits of it. Is there a necessity? Now, how to practice? And what is the necessity? We'll touch these two subjects. Necessity of silence is most undermined. Silence is a must for every one of us. When we don't speak, when we are at sleep, is not silence. That is just rest to the body. Silence is practiced consciously in a state of awareness. You are aware. You have a state of awareness. You are in a state of awareness. Yet you are maintaining silence. So silence cannot be misconstrued as being quiet when there is no necessity to speak and you're quiet doesn't mean that is silence. No, silence is consciously done. Now, when a sadhaka, we know many of the orders, especially in Buddhist order, there is one sect which takes a oath of silence for the rest of their life till the death. Mahayana Buddhists, monks, they take oath of silence. Even in Sanatana Dharma, of course, it all originated from Sanatana Dharma. They take an oath of silence for a particular passage of time or forever. In Christianity, there are set of monks, they take the oath of silence. They take the oath of silence and solitude. So silence is a very, very deep spiritual practice. Now, how do we do it? Let us say we fix a number of hours to start with. Say about 6 to 8 hours in my awakened state, not when I'm asleep, when I'm conscious, when I'm awake. Let's say I wake up at 7 in the morning, I attend to my daily needs. From 9 to say 12, 1, whatever, 4 hours, 9 o'clock onwards or 8 o'clock onwards, I shall maintain silence. So that is a conscious decision that we make and we maintain that silence. So now what happens? I am not going to talk. That is silence. So I'll do rest everything. No, it's not that. I am not going to talk nor do anything. I am going to stay in a state of silence because silence is not just about verbal silence, putting your mind to rest from the clutter and the chit chat. The clutter of the mind is what needs to be silenced. Silence comes with being still also, or rather minimizing. You just sit in a place. I'm not going to talk. You attend to small things, whatever you need to do. You eat, you drink, water, whatever. That's all fine. But you're maintaining silence. Because silence is not just about verbal. That is the next step. When you have to put your mind to rest, your thoughts to rest, that is also practicing silence. If we put up a headphone and watch a TV or listen to music and think that we are practicing silence, no, we are not. Let's not fool ourselves. First step is to consciously stop talking. Second step is to slowly come towards stillness. You have to ensure that you don't engage or you minimize your engagement with the world outside or whatever is outside of you. Just be quiet with your eyes wide open. You don't have to close your eyes or go to sleep now. You may, if you want to, meditate. There's no harm. But silence does not, Mauna Vrata does not prescribe meditation during the course of Mauna Vrata. Because maintaining that silence itself is a meditation. Right? So this is the next phase of silence. Now, what happens when you are vocally silent and you are restricting your activities to the minimal necessity? Then what happens? The thoughts. Now comes the actual results of silence. The thoughts will start swinging. Too many thoughts will start cluttering our mind. Our mind emanates so many thoughts. This is exactly the time when you have to witness your thoughts, engage with your thoughts. That is the time when you have to look at your thoughts and engage with your thoughts and also reason out with your thoughts. There are two things. These are two important things. One, the bunch of thoughts. Second is the thoughts which they are, which makes it a bunch of thoughts. The attribute or the entity called the thoughts and the kind of thoughts within it. So that starts getting this, separating from you, the aham. When you are practicing silence with, conscious silence, consciously being quiet and practicing silence, that is a time when you start disengaging yourself from your thoughts. You start witnessing them, or you have to start witnessing them. Thoughts are there, cluttered. They continuously come, but yet you are quiet. In order to ensure that the thoughts don't become realities, you have to practice silence. I repeat myself, in order to ensure that the thoughts don't become realities, we practice silence. When we are silent and when we are not speaking and we are minimizing our deeds, the thoughts which influence us to do something, be at some place or speak something or engage with some activity, you have receded that. So that is like, there is a conflict, there is a push, but consciously you've taken a decision not to do anything or not to speak either. So the push from your thoughts to reality is curtailed. Your silence and stillness will ensure that your thoughts don't become realities. And slowly those thoughts will evaporate. It just goes. So silence has the first advantage. Second, most important, when we practice silence, what happens to us is we develop the technique of contemplation. We start contemplating on each thought to start with. On each and every thought which comes to us, crosses during our practice of silence, we contemplate, we think, we apply our logic, rational. Is it right? Is that wrong? What is the consequences? So contemplation begins from within. So the power of contemplation is endless. It's one of the best things to have. When we get into that state of contemplation, because when you are getting into a state of contemplation, there is no expression, there is no deed. But what happens from morning till evening during our days? Thoughts into realities. Our thoughts are triggering, actions and reactions are happening. There is no time for contemplation. We don't contemplate, we just barge. We seldom do. We sometimes do, of course. But that becomes a pattern in us. The contemplation is very, very necessary. When we are in a state of contemplation, your Ida, Pingala, Sushumna Nadi gains the perfect balance. So contemplation is one big practice or big process which becomes one with us. So benefit of silence, Mauna Vrata, is you have curtailed your actions, your thoughts into realities, and because of which you have developed something called as contemplation. If you have to evolve that contemplation as an attribute in you, you have to practice silence. And another most important benefit is when you're silent, your thoughts are not put into action. You're in a contemplative state. What is it that required for you to be in a contemplative state is patience. People who are restless, people who are impulsive, people who don't know what they are speaking, they speak and then they think. Then they regret, I should not have said, I have said this. People who don't want to hear, they just want to reply. For them, practicing silence is the best medicine. We need to assess ourselves. People who are extremely impulsive, they just act or react and then they contemplate or they think. Sometimes they don't even. These are the attributes. These are all our patterns, sanskars from previous birth. How do we break that? These patterns from the past births or what we have inculcated in this birth also. Practice silence. We have to practice silence. Silence gives you, as I said, 3, 4 advantages. Your thoughts won't break into reality immediately. Your thoughts will be contemplated upon. And then it goes through the process of contemplation. Then it becomes a reality or you perform your deed. So contemplation is something which becomes your virtue. Then the most important, another most important thing, it teaches you patience. You are quiet. You are giving time for that contemplation, the process of contemplation to happen within, with practicing silence. Another important thing, fear. Fear goes. Fear is the one which causes that impulsiveness. That is put to rest. You will be devoid of fear. There is nothing to fear. Because your fear is also a thought. You're reasoning out with that. You're telling the fear there's nothing to be scared of. Give it some time. You have patience. You have contemplations. You are deciding what you're doing is to be done or not to be done. Fear leaves the one who contemplates. Fear leaves the one who practices silence. Silence consciously practiced. Fear goes, patience increases, contemplative attitude or attribute becomes one with us. Whatever we are supposed to be doing, putting thoughts into reality is there, it goes through a process of contemplation. So many advantages of silence. And another thing, the way you are being perceived, the way the world looks at you when you practice silence, your aura changes. Your presence in a place, how people perceive you, will be with high level of respect. Because your persona changes. How do you evolve? How do you know that you have evolved? You're not doing this to impress anybody. When we practice silence, our maturity, our spiritual maturity goes leaps and bounds. You attain high level of spiritual maturity. What is an attribute of a learned man? A saint, a monk, an enlightened soul? Patience. Puts you in a state of contemplation. Digs out an answer to your question from you. Peaceful, calm, always does after contemplation. There is always a gap between the thought and the deed. These are all the attributes of someone who is highly evolved. And how the one has evolved is by practicing silence. This is the power of silence. Most beautiful part of it is what you get out of silence, practicing silence, is peace. Peace from within, peace around us, peace all around us, peace where we place ourselves, peace, place at which we visit or we go to, peace. Peace in the hearts and minds of the people who converse with us, engage with us, peace all around. From Mauna Vrata, what we become is mitabhashi. This Mauna Vrata is a yogic practice. It's a very deep practice. It's one of the siddhis which we are discussing, or one of the upasadhanas. From Mauna Vrata, when we practice, we become mitabhashis. What is mitabhashi? Speaks, not mitha is less bhashi, if you take it literally, but in this context, mitabhashi is the one who speaks when it has to be spoken. Words are vague. Words are stated, not said. And spoken, how much is needed to be spoken. That is a mitabhashi. Then we become hitabhashis. What is hitabhashi? The one who speaks pleasantness, the one who talks beautiful things, the one who doesn't speak something which upsets or hurts another person. Shubh shubh bolte hain. Always speak. Speech is nectar, like we read in Sri Sai Satcharitra, Lord's words were like nectar. He used to maintain silence for long. So that is mitabhashi to hitabhashi. We speak when we need, when we feel that it is necessity, there is a necessity to speak. That is the power of silence. When we attain this state of silence, when we attain this state of peace, you have evolved leaps and bounds. There is so much of change in our persona when we practice silence. Just one attribute, silence. Your thoughts are put to rest. Your mind is put to rest. Your words are put to rest. Your emotions are put to rest. Your actions and reactions are put to rest. What are you? An embodiment of peace, an embodiment of contemplation, an embodiment of absolute state of sthita prajna. When we have to attain the state of sthita prajna, we have to maintain silence. We have to practice silence. You are disassociating yourself from your own attributes. And you are withdrawing to your true self by practicing silence. Our emotions, our thoughts, impulsiveness, everything is put to rest by practicing silence. And biologically, physically, all your hormones are in perfect equilibrium. Your cortisol levels have dropped. Your all other happy hormones, good hormones, are perfectly balanced because of silence. Silence is practiced by the masters. Now, finally, a master doesn't speak at all. A guru never speaks. He's always in silence. Let us not misconstrue his communication as break of silence. No, it's like breathing is a necessity, eating is a necessity, seeing is a necessity, all the indriyas are a necessity. Likewise, even the speech becomes a necessity. So the guru talks when it is necessary to be spoken, yet he is in silence. When we tell Sri Sainath Maharaj spoke in silence, this is the silence. He was from within always silent. As an expression, he used to speak, to communicate, not to talk. The speech to communicate doesn't break silence. A chat, chit chat, unnecessary talks break silence. That is the beauty of silence. When we speak, being in a state of silence, it is words are weighed. There is a meaning. There is a thought. It is an expression. There is a purpose. Doesn't break your silence. Silence is the best mantra. Silence is the best sadhana. Silence is the ultimate yoga. Of course, dhyana. What are we trying to achieve in dhyana? Silence. What are we trying to achieve in our meditative path? Silence. Just that we have closed our eyes, we have got into the meditative process with the technique of Kundalini yoga. But eventually, what happens when we try to attain a state of nirvichara samadhi, thoughtless awareness? What is it that we are trying to achieve or we are achieving? Silence. Nirvikalpa samadhi, desireless awareness. Silence. Silence is not lack of words or stopping your speech. Silence is an experience. Silence is you. The conscience or the aham is always silent. The soul, the song of the soul, the speech of the soul is silence. Just silence, just be. That is samadhi. Silence is everything. Right? These are few words about silence. Before I sign off, I have to I have to quote one of the greatest masters who have walked on earth, contemporary masters, one of the contemporary masters, and the greatest neo-Advaiti, Sri Ramana Maharshi. His real name is Venkata Ramana Iyer. I mean, his full name, sorry. We popularly know him as Ramana Maharshi. So there was one trader who comes to Ramana. He's done with life. He's done everything. Very rich guy, very wealthy guy. He's distributed his wealth and everything is done. Uh, you know, he's ready to go on the spiritual path. So he comes to Ramana and he says, Ramana, I am done with everything. Whatever wealth I created, I have given it off to my children, grandchildren. I'm very happy, content, all done. Now I have to progress spiritually. I have to move spiritually and I have to evolve and dissolve. I have to attain mukti and moksha. So I have to attain that moksha. So tell me what I should do. Ramana gives him one answer. Summair in Tamil. What it means is be silent. Don't do anything. What should I do? Silent. Do nothing. Be quiet. Be silent. Ramana's only answer, which is such a profound answer, solution rather, and the path to evolve and dissolve, attain oneness, Ramana says only one thing. Summaira. In Tamil, Summaira means be silent. Silence. So that is what that trader, that businessman and a seeker, the lesson that he gets from Ramana is that be quiet. You've done everything. Now be silent. Don't do anything. Be silent. That's it. You're done. But what all happens when we practice silence is what we discussed thus far. How it is going to evolve us. Right? Thank you very much. Let's be silent. Sairam.